This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
So in Joshua, they were facing this whole new ordeal in their lives. They've been wandering around in the desert for 40 years, hadn't really known any kind of settled lifestyle at all. In fact, all of the people who were at the end of the 40-year period had not started it. So, had not started that 40-year period. All of these people that are ending the 40-year period were new. That's all they'd known. Their entire life was just wandering around in the desert, living that desert lifestyle. And so now they're faced with this whole new premise, this whole new idea that they're going to cross this river, move into this land, settle down, and it will be their permanent home. Not that they didn't want it, but can you imagine how intimidating that would be? It would be like you just deciding that you're going to do something completely, radically different from what you have ever done before in your life. And there are all kinds of choices that come along with that, all kinds of decisions. And so Joshua sends these spies out from Shittim, and they go over and they look over the land, and they come back, and they say that Joshua says, well, what does it look like? And they say, wow, the Lord's surely given us the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us. And so in chapter 3, early in the morning, they all go to the river and they get ready to cross the Jordan, and there's some steps that they take to go through with all of that. And then he gets them all together and he does some organizing, and they make their plans for moving and living into this new land that God had given to them. And in this amazing account, and I would encourage you to read this and take notes and then go back and read over it and study it on your own. In this amazing account, we discover some principles of starting over, things that you need to do when you decide that you're going to do something new, or you're going to take some new steps, or this is the beginning of the year and you're going to try something different. And so I thought it would be an appropriate topic as we head into this new year. So Israel is starting over. That's really what they're doing. I mean, they've never done this before, and so this is a new start. They've been in captivity and now in the desert for 40 years, and this was it. They were at the land of promise. It was finally here. They were given their chance to start over. You are also given that same opportunity. When you think about it, in your own life, you are given the opportunity to start over. Are there challenges? Of course. Are there obstacles? Of course there are. Are there questions that you can't answer? Of course there are. In the same way that they were facing those immense obstacles and questions and overwhelming odds, those things happen to you also. And you have lots of reasons why 2014 is going to be more of the same. More doubts and more fears and lots of questions. But in the same way that God offered the Israelites some principles that they needed to apply in their life, you have these same principles that you can apply in your life. God is offering you success. Now, I'm not one of these guys that preaches, that God wants you rich and God wants you, completely 100% just independently wealthy and all of that stuff. I don't believe that. I don't think the Bible teaches that. But He does want you to be successful. And success has to be defined as fulfilling the opportunities, or fulfilling the potential and the goals that God has for you. That's how I define success. Fulfilling the potential and the goals that God has for you. And so God says, I want you to be successful. I want you to fulfill your potential. I want you to accomplish the goals that I have for you. And make no mistake about it, God has goals for you. He has goals for Himself. The Bible talks about them. Jesus had goals. The Apostle Paul had goals. He taught about fulfilling your goals. God says He has goals, and you fit into His goals. And He wants, His concept of success is that you fulfill your potential and your goals, His goals for your life. Which leads us to one of the greatest principles of success. And you've heard me talk about this before, but I want to dwell on this a little bit. One of the greatest principles of success is this: God's will and God's way is revealed and supported through His promises. God's will and God's way is revealed and supported through His promises. That's the first step in starting over. Apply the promises of God. Begin applying the promises of God. I'm amazed how many Christians are not focused on the promises of God. I mean, there are over 6,000 promises in the Bible. Now, certainly some of them don't apply to you. Some of them were historic things that God said, I'm going to do this if you'll do this, and people did it, and it was evidence that God was in control. But there were also something very important. Promises are the revelation of God's will. Now, I want you to see in Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 3. This is what he says. Write on them, these are stones that they had been given. Write on them the words of this law when you have crossed over to enter into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your fathers, promised you. He promised these things to you. And he says, I want you to know these promises. Write them down because they're for you. And so here's what I want you to tattoo, if you will, on yourself. God's promises are the revelation of His will. When God says, this is what I will do, what He's saying is, this is what I want to do. When God gives you a promise, it's the revelation of His will.
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class, we want to thank you for watching. We hope it was a blessing.